So, hello everybody. Evening in
Hello.
Australia and morning over here. And how's everybody doing? Does anybody want to? How have you been since last time? Because people were sort of saying, right, let's get back into it. Has anyone got anything to report that they've managed somewhat?
I'll start then. So I started on the videos, the little videos, and realized I'd actually gotten to month 4 before yeah.
Yeah,
But now I've gone back to the 3rd month and started with rolling out of bed, which is just lovely. Yeah.
it's a nice place to start.
Yeah. And it's funny because I thought I was doing it, nicely, but not. I really need to watch the video and go through it step by step.
Hmm.
So, and I'll download Thinkific onto my phone, and then I can listen to the audio more easily too.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the other thing I did was I watched the group video. Is that what you call it? The Miss Goldie Club video
Yes, seminar video. Yes. From last
seminar.
time. Yes.
Yeah, it was just brilliant. I really, really liked it. So it was going through for those people that haven't seen it, it's doing the deep front line. And it was just brilliant, especially when you
We,
came to the eyes and the brain. And I did it with Lily this morning. We went over it. I practiced with her a bit. And as soon as we got to the brain, the same thing happened to her. She just changed completely. So I'm going to look at that again and take a few notes, I think. And, yeah.
Which date was it? Which date was that one?
10th,
June,
8th of June. 8th of June.
8th of June.
Yes, it was just a
yeah.
few days ago, wasn't it? It was last Friday.
Yes. So if we do get together the Aussie group, I think it'd be nice to go through that together, perhaps, or anything that we are interested in.
Yeah, I've been working with the deep front line a lot this year, and the
Ah,
discoveries have just been coming and coming and coming. And
yes.
it feels like I'm finally understanding what Alexander might have been doing.
Yeah.
It's profound. Yeah.
Yes. And Hannes's observation was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we'll have to watch it to find out what we're talking about. Anyone else want to comment?
I've continued on with what I was doing, which was pretty regular anyway. So and I mixed it up, so it's not really that I'm stuck. So I'm in month 6 doing the front line, the not dropping the sternum, going into soft palate, doing some lovely what do you call it? Humming, and to lift the soft palate, and then taking that up into voice and smile. But then linking that up with my feet, with a standing poise, with the heel lifts, with step ups, with some of the exercises. I've got a whole sort of routine. And in the shower, I do my spatial awareness and the visual work. So yeah, and so as I progress exercises and as I listen here, I'll move on and listen to other ones, but then I'll come back and bring them in, or if I forget something, I'll go back to another month and look at that. If I need to remind myself about arm pulls, or I've got a client coming in about something and I think, oh, I'm not sure about that, I might go back and listen to it that morning before I see them.
Yes, it's a quick revision of practical stuff, isn't it? To be able to sit back and yes. Yeah, because there are some summary videos. Yeah, I rediscovered the voice ones myself after everybody. I'd forgotten I'd done that.
They're lovely.
Yes.
But if I do really, if I wake up badly and I really need to come back just to breath, the one that does it for me is your chapter month 2, breathing, turning on the spot.
Yes.
That'll bring me back if I need that. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's lovely to hear how you're using these. That's nice, and you've all got knowledge to find your own way with them. Yeah. Chris.
I've played with your idea of going into monkey. I sort of pulled that from the book with the angle poise lamp page in the book. And, you know, the argument about sort of going into monkey with the sitting bones leading or with the hips leading, as opposed to allowing the ischial,
Tuberosities. Ischial tuberosities.
no, sorry, I'm using the wrong word.
Iliac spine.
Iliac spine, that's right. Rather, yeah, using those as your kind of leader of the movement. So they're, you know, sort of sending them back and the thighs back to go into, and I was doing it because one of my pupils was having a lot of trouble around T10. She'd hurt her ribs, and she was getting a recurring pain in that area. And I've tried lots of things with her. So I wanted this way of doing it. But my question is really coming back to the changing of the direction of the ischial spines. We were going forward with them at one stage. I think we suggested that. I think for monkey, they really need to come back rather than go forward.
So you're questioning the difference between using the old idea of just taking the iliac spines back, the front iliac spines back, and the new idea of bringing the back ones around. Is that the question?
No, I'm going back to the pulls, I think, where we changed the pull from iliac spines back to iliac spines forward, with the
Yes.
esophageals also going forward. And I think that that's for the pulls. For this monkey idea of yours, with the iliac spines coming back, is in my opinion, a preferable way to think.
Well, it's an easier
direct...
way to think for somebody who's new to it. And I think a number of people have said that when they introduce the iliac spines pulls to new people, and I do too for that matter, I very often go with the old way first because it's more logical to them. You know, I'm moving back in space, my iliac spines want to come back. So
back and up.
Yes, exactly, back and up.
To tie in with the ribs coming back and up.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So I've played with it and I've found value.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But,
some people, when they do the iliac spines, the front iliac spines back, actually go into problems. I've seen people go into quite severe back pain. And there was somebody else who every time she did it, actually, she started a grumbling appendix. And when she swapped, and so she just left those pulls alone. And she came back to them again and tried them again, and the same thing happened again, that she went into a grumbling appendix. And when we swapped it for the other way around, that stopped happening. And so, you know, one has to be, I mean, for a lot of people, it's fine. Go with the iliac spines back. It's very logical. But there are some pupils that it doesn't work on, and one has to watch, particularly people with severe back pain. And so that's why we change it the other way around, because that's the way that's actually more physiological.
So the caveat would be that you probably need to look at the person in the context of their issues.
Yes.
And decide or experiment with which way to go.
Exactly. And if it starts putting them into pain, back off fast and get it going around the other way. But if one thinks about what the hip bone is doing, that the hip bone is actually doing that, then I think it makes more sense, because and it was something that a new way of thinking about is that muscles and bones don't have to be going in the same direction. Because up the first pulls, we had the muscles and the bones going in the same direction. For instance, if I, you know, use my bicep to pull my forearm up, the bicep is pulling that way and the bone is being pulled in that direction. They're both moving in the same direction. And the first way of doing the hamstring pulls where we thought the hamstring, the pull from the sitting bones to the knees, which is the hamstring pulling that way, and the sit bone was indeed pulled that way. But as we've said before, muscles can actually pull in either direction. And if the knee is tethered, which if one's standing it is, then it doesn't matter whether the hamstring pulls that way or that way, the result will always be to pull the sitting bone down. So, and it's easier to think about this one with the hamstrings, I think, because it's more obvious. And so by thinking the hamstring going in that direction, back to the knees, pulling to the sitting bones are still moved down, but the result is more buoyancy. You're actually working with the way the extensor line of the body is actually working. So the same is actually true of that iliac spine pull, that the transverse abdominis isn't pulling that way, which I assumed it was. It isn't. It's always pulling that way, because it's working to close the front of the body. Shall I talk about this in more depth? Do you know about this? Because it's actually really quite important. And it also describes how the transverse abdominis links with the diaphragm. Do you want me to, should we talk about this? Yeah, so someone who's got diastasis rectus, you know, and their belly is really bulged out, say after childbirth or too many beers or whatever, and the transverse abdominis can no longer pull the belly. It can no longer close across the front. It can no longer pull the belly back to where it's supposed to be. The guts are spilled out. So it's wanting to move in this direction in order to pull the guts back into place. And can you see that as it does that, of course, it is because it's widening the back, because it's moving in this direction, it's actually causing this widening of the back, and then it's pulling the front back in space and closing it into a flat stomach. And that then allows the internal obliques also to come into play and the external obliques also to come into play, and then the rectus abdominis coming into play. So actually you get in Pilates and some fitness work, they talk about zipping up the front of the body. And it really gives that sense that actually, yes, that comes into play, and then those and those and then that, and you do get this zipping up the front of the body. So that physiologically is what's supposed to be happening. And I think if you actually track the bone of what's happening with the hip bone, I'll just get out my hip bone. Got this. So here's the whole hip bone, which of course has the sitting bones and the pubic bone and the iliac and crest, the big ilium section. And if that transverse abdominis is slack, then that all pulls together at the back. Up a bit, and you get the it's difficult with my wrist at the moment. I'll do that side. So the posterior iliac spines come too much together. It tightens across the sacrum, and that's going to again lead to too much tightness in the sacroiliac joints, which could lead to problems there, and tension at the bottom of the pelvic floor, leading to sciatica and so on. And so we want that to be widening this way, so that, again, there's more space in the iliac joint, not in sacroiliac joint, not too much space, but enough that it's happy, and it opens up the back of the pelvic floor and frees the sacrum and so on. And when that happens, it means those front iliac spines actually start coming a little bit together even. So that the whole thing is held with the hip bone is drawn that way. Does that make sense so far, what I'm saying?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Yeah. So have a play with it. Just come and sort of hold your posterior iliac spines. And if we just use spatial awareness and let ourselves receive. Receiving back to yourself, receiving the room, receiving the spatial relationships between yourself and what you're looking at. Drop your hands for a moment if you want. Just finding that spatial relationship between you and the room, using your nose feather, your brain feather if needed, and allowing that all to bring you back to yourself. Your eyes can just flow gently around the room. I'm aware as I'm looking at a bookcase over there that bookcase has a front, it has a back, it has sides, it has a top, it has a base. So I'm aware of it having relationship, three-dimensional relationship within itself, across the space between me and it, which also has a palpable sense of three-dimensional space. It's sitting in a spatial relationship to the rest of the room, and so am I. And I start to experience myself as a three-dimensional object within the three-dimensional space of the room. And when I become aware of my three-dimensional self, perhaps I become more aware of my breathing, that three-dimensional space self is in flux. Everything is opening and closing. And here's my new toy that somebody sent me to demonstrate how the whole torso opens and shuts with the breath. Isn't that just beautiful? So everything is opening and everything is coming back together with the breath. We are dynamic creatures. So once you found that, just put your hands gently on your posterior iliac spines. And see if they're moving ever so slightly. It's not a big movement. With the breath. Everybody finding that? Yeah? Yeah, Sandra? Yeah. Sheila, okay? Nicola, you okay with this? Yeah. So the rather strange thing is, I think this movement is caused by the movement of the transverse abdominis, because there is a relationship between the transverse abdominis and the diaphragm. The transverse abdominis comes across in a series of slips that come onto, which way is it coming? Yes, it's filling in all the gap. So it's coming onto these slips across here in little slips, like the serratus anterior comes down in slips, you know, onto each rib. So this is also coming across in slips onto each rib, like that. And the diaphragm on the inside is also coming down in slips onto each rib cage, onto each rib. And so they're making fascial connection, like that, as it were, you know, sort of down like that. And they're working in antagonistic action. So just put your hands here for a minute. The diaphragm contracts and the ribs move apart. And the transverse abdominis, if it's working well, doesn't just let the belly spill out on the in-breath. It actually holds tone. So it continues to contract this way a little bit, even as the diaphragm comes down. It's holding eccentric tone as it has to expand out to let that movement of the ribs come down. And then when the diaphragm comes up again, the transverse abdominis closes the gap. In-breath, it has to expand, but it expands eccentrically. It's working, if it's working well. And on the out-breath, it closes the gap again and everything zips up. So there's that antagonistic action of the diaphragm. And I think the diaphragm also is holding eccentric tone. It's not just collapsing up. It's not just releasing up. It's also holding tone as it comes up. So they're working antagonistically together. Does that make sense? Can everybody sort of feel that, get a sense for that? Sandra? Yeah, good. Anyone having problems with this? Can you find it, Chris?
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Here's an image of it. I'd had this picture for years and hadn't seen its significance. We're looking at the inside of the thoracic wall. And there's the transverse thoracis, which is what I drew this picture for. And then here's this sort of weaving connection of the diaphragm slips coming down and the transverse thoracis the transverse abdominis coming across. So there it is. It's so clear of the costal diaphragm. It's all in relationship to the transverse abdominis. So the transverse abdominis is also a muscle of breathing. Isn't that amazing? And then, of course, there's the back of the diaphragm is because there's three sections to the diaphragm. This is the little sternal part of the diaphragm. This is all the costal arch. The costal section is the biggest section. At the back, you've got the lumbar section coming down onto the lumbar spine. So, yeah. So let's put that together with our whole now. So what we've got is that every time the transverse abdominis contracts, because it inserts all the way along that iliac crest, I think that when it contracts, it pulls that iliac spine wide. It pulls the hip bone round like that. So it's actually pulling the hip bone round like that and trying to make, if it's keeping tone, it's keeping the back of the body wide. So I think that's what I try and clue pupils into now. It's quite a lot of complex anatomy, but intelligent pupils, a lot of pupils who are, when I say intelligent, pupils who are clear thinking, some people are too overwhelmed to take this sort of thing in, but anyone who's conscious can often get a real understanding of this. And I think, so then you want that transverse abdominis to be holding tone on every part of the breath. And yes, there's a little bit of movement happening with the breath, but by and large, you want it to be keeping that belly, and Alexander talked so much in his early books about the importance of the belly muscles in supporting the breathing. And there it is.
Penelope. So that also gives support for not allowing the chest to collapse on the out. Yeah.
Absolutely, exactly. It's part of that whole dynamic, isn't it?
Yes.
So, has everybody done that one with me? Yeah, we all have, haven't we? Not letting the chest collapse at the out breath, because that then collapses the belly. We've done that, Chris. We've done that, Chandra.
Yeah, we do, and even that thing we talked about last time about,
Yes.
getting the extra length to the lower back. You're sustaining an upward direction.
Yes.
On the out breath. Yeah.
Yes, on the out breath. That's right, and that then keeps that. So it all very much works together. Yeah. And then if you're keeping that going as you're going into monkey, you see, then you've got that. This coming round, this coming up, and that then is drawing the back that way. But it's not immediately logical that drawing this way.
Yeah.
But it's this thing about the bones, that the muscle is moving that way, and that actually in itself is drawing the bone in the other direction. So the bones are, even as these front bones are actually slightly drawn together, they are drawn back. So the front iliac spines are moving back in space. but they're moving back in space because this is coming this way, and this is coming this way as well. But the same thing is happening at the ribs, because again, the external obliques also want to work in this plane, as do the internal obliques. They're all working in this inward plane. This is working in an upward plane. And so they're all working that way. And the shoulder, of course, is working in that plane as well, because we want that serratus anterior really working that way. So actually the whole of the torso is coming that way, even as the result is to widen and draw it back. So it's quite consistent when you think about it fully. So maybe have another go with your pupil next time and refine it and see if you can get her understanding that. Because if you can teach it, you can really get the sense of it. But
Yes.
yeah. But I think, you know, often early on in lessons, I'll just say, yeah, iliac spines come back to start with, and then start refining that understanding once they've got
Well, that's
some.
basically what I've done. Yeah,
Sorry?
that's what I've done.
Yes. Yeah. Brilliant.
To get it going. But yeah, this is a lot more sophisticated.
Yes. Yes. And that starts to build people that three-dimensional model of the body, because again, one can think rather two-dimensionally about iliac spines coming back. Whereas this actually is more, you have to have more of a conception of the body as a volume to understand.
Well, yeah, the kind of the contradictory directions of muscles and bones is also a fairly dynamic thought in itself, isn't it?
Isn't it just? Yes. 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 So yeah, I think one can scale these for pupils as they need. But, yeah. Good. Anyone else want to comment on what we've just done there?
I found that a bit confusing, but I've been working really happily with lower ribs backing up, which I think is same but different.
Well, the bones are moving back and up. It's just that the muscle actually wants to go that way in order for that to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can feel, you know, a lot more tone through the whole torso for myself and my students with whatever that direction means for me.
Yes, yes. And you know, it's up to you. I'm not saying you've got to use it in the direction we've just said. Use it in whatever works. But I think I think to me actually more power comes in when you realize that those abdominal muscles are actually trying to close the front because they're trying to support all the organs. And that must be equally true of animals whose bellies actually hang down. And, you know, so those abdominal muscles really must be needing to work to support them up. Yeah. How have you been doing, Sandra?
Good. Since we spoke, I've been in the Maldives, so I didn't do any videos. But I did a tremendous amount of looking. So I was doing a lot of snorkeling, and every now and then I'd find, oh, actually, I'm, you know, having this wonderful experience, but not present. And I just really let the vision see, you know, really actually look at a fish and look at another fish instead of just a massive space, you know, breaking it down into a lot more detail. So I've been working fairly consistently with the walking, turning, looking. That's one of my warm-ups for working. And yeah, just you know, adding the breathing into those activities, or the awareness of breath and feet. Yeah, so just, you know, just trying to expand my picture of myself and carry that into work, I guess.
Yeah. And when you are in a beautiful situation, I mean, it's a long time since I've snorkeled, but to let it all come three-dimensional and see the detail, it almost goes psychedelic, doesn't it? It's just like, who needs drugs? You've just got oof, such vision. Yeah, it must have been beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware of it just in my dog walk in the morning, that because I've been tired, you know, and I've had colds, and after the move, it's been pretty stressful, and everything goes a bit two-dimensional. I've been reciting poetry to keep my sense of self and let myself receive the world. And suddenly all the verbiage goes, all the foliage goes three-dimensional. It's so different. Experience. It just has such beauty then. Yeah.
And I before, well, probably a month, 6 weeks ago, I had I jammed up that area of the pelvis, that joint. So it was really good to see that sacrum being pulled apart a little bit for me to see, because most models are very glued, and so I didn't really have a sense of that space between the pelvis and the spine. So.
Yeah. I went on the internet to look for one of these pelvises, and I expected to pay a lot of money for it. And actually, it was dead cheap. And there were lots and lots and lots of them available, because it turns out every midwife has one. And so actually, they're €30, I think I paid for this. You know, it's nothing for a detailed model of one woman's skeleton, because they really are taken from real women. Do you want to hear a bit more about the sacroiliac joint?
Yes.
Just
yeah.
catch you up is something again I've been thinking about, because you know the standard idea of the sacroiliac joint is that it's that the sacrum is a wedge, and it goes between the hip bones like the keystone in an arch, just as a compression structure, you know. And if the keystone goes down, it pulls the two bones towards the two stones either side towards, and the whole thing is a very solid structure. And yes, there is that aspect of it, that every time we bear down, the hip bones do come together. But actually, we also need that flexibility in there, because every time we walk, you know, this is happening slightly. And as I say, every time we breathe, this is happening. And particularly if we give birth, we need that to happen. So there's actually movement within the iliac, the sacroiliac joint. And it's an amazing joint, because it's, I'll just show you the shape of it. It's a sort of kidney-shaped joint. And it's a synovial joint, but instead of the surfaces being smooth, there's actually ridges on the inside, and they match the two sides, so that actually there's a bit of a sort of locking mechanism in the joint, just allowing a little bit of movement, because the sacrum sort of does a nodding movement between the hip bones. And also, as I say, we need this movement as well, so that it can, there's all sorts of movement needs to be possible, but it's a real Goldilocks joint. You don't want too much and you don't want too little. And so it's not just this sort of keystone thing, but actually it's set in a whole sling of ligaments. And there are ligaments across the back here, but there are also ligaments that come down from the iliac crest onto it. And the result is that it's sort of slung like a baby in a bouncer. If you think about the baby with these elastic straps coming up, and when the baby comes down, the elastic straps come together and then they come up again. So there's a sort of, I think there's a suspensory element to how the sacrum sits between the hip bones, which actually has a little bit of more of a tensegrity, and it has a little bit of bounce in it. So I think it's a lovely thought that when it comes down, that pulls those hip bones in and stabilizes it for when we walk on it, for when it needs to do all that weight transfer. And then when we take the weight off it again, it actually can spring open a little bit. And I think the more we can get the sense of the movement in that joint with the breathing, the more we can allow that natural, suspensory nature of the joint as well. And then it's going to stay free rather than fusing up. Because again, the official idea is, oh, well, it fuses when people are about 40. That's all right, isn't it? No, it blooming isn't. We want that movement still there. How does that sound, Sandra, with your experience of what happened?
Yeah, sounds like one of those got glued, but no, that's very helpful.
Yeah.
That's given me a lot more to think about.
Yes, yes, and
Thank you.
it's just allowing that back of the pelvis. You see, this is again why I don't think we're supposed to lean back, because we're all so good at just leaning back in the chair. But actually, if you lean back, those posterior spines pull together, and they will jam the whole thing up. And so we're supposed to be much more up in the bounce. Yeah, Nicola, are you willing to say anything at all?
Sorry, I've been practicing a lot. I play viola, so I've just been doing lots of playing. Audition coming up, so any spare time I've been just doing that. And now I'm away this week, practicing in the mornings and then doing concerts and rehearsals in the evening.
Yeah.
On
Yes, you'll get there.
yeah, but I've been trying. I need all this. I've been trying to do the deep front line, and when I remember, I forget so much to do the breathing, but get the belly working instead of here, because when I'm playing, I think last night I came back to my digs and my belly was so out here, and this was sunk, and I thought, so that's really, I've got to think about that while I'm playing, because it'll really help, I think.
Yes, and it's work in progress. I mean, if you can get it during practicing, then one day you can get it during rehearsal, and then maybe one day you can get it even for 5 minutes in a concert, and then there will come a point where it holds. Yeah, so it's going to be your body getting the sense of that.
Yeah.
What instrument do you play?
Oh, viola. So I'm out here, and my old habit is this trapeze is working too hard or coming up here. And last night when I was rehearsing, I was getting pain in my bum, like my getting the when it gets trapped in that sacroiliac joint there. Oh, brilliant. So again, like, it's just really timely, all this work.
Yeah. Now, I know you've been working on getting the lower body staying alive while you're playing, because I think a lot of musicians, it just shuts down because they're thinking up here, and they've forgotten the lower body exists.
Yeah. But it's easy to, I'm sort of aware of my legs just being a bit dead and disconnected and thinking, oh, yeah, so it's getting it all.
But that very awareness, to have that awareness, is actually the start of wanting to change it, isn't it? Because presumably they were dead for years and you didn't even know.
Exactly. I think I got better during my training, obviously, but now it's finding it for myself, and it's a thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, along with the pressure of having the family, and yeah, it's a lot going on, isn't there?
Yeah.
Remembering around children is
But he was having a complete meltdown because we weren't going the way home he wanted to on Saturday. And I nearly texted you because I thought eyes back and apart, because I just read the stats news and had the Kitty Velopolska one with the eyes back and apart. And I suddenly thought we were on the tram and he was all sort of fired up. And I thought, eyes back and apart. And he changed and I changed. And it was wonderful. It lasted about 2 minutes, but it was amazing. So, yeah.
yes.
Yeah. It's, drip feed.
Yes. No, that's a lovely story.
It was really cool.
Yeah. Sorry, what did you do, Nicola, or what awareness did you come into when
So
he was having the?
we used to do it a lot with Alana when I was training, and because I think Kitty Wielopolska. Now I can't remember what.
She was on the very first training course.
Right. Yeah, and she in Stat News there was an article, there was a transcription of a a sort of a masterclass she'd done at school, and
Oh, I must open my Stat News.
sorry,
I must open my Stat News.
it's actually got, and the Miss Goldie one I really like the
Oh,
Miss
right.
Goldie.
I must definitely open the Stat News. Yes.
There are lovely bits in it. um, so, and the instruction, she was sitting, what had happened? I think her sister had some illness, and she was thinking, how can I help her? I think. Then she was sitting in front of the mirror one day and she thought, right, well, let's direct the eyes back and apart. And she had a sort of neurologist sort of person with her on this at this meeting, who was saying, yeah, when she did the direction, she realized everything was going ding ding ding. It was like a chain reaction all the way down. And she said, oh, and I forgot, you know, C7, and I forgot, all these different bits, which he then I don't think I got to the end of the article, or I can't remember, but he said, yes, it's so deeply connected. The eyes are the first. The organism has a leading set of muscles, which, in evolutionarily speaking, led the movement. So you'd see, I suppose, you'd see some food, and voila, you'd go towards the food. So in humans, it's the eyes. So it's yes, it's a good place to tap into first. I think that was the thing, but it's
Yes. The up and the forward, the back and wide. It's the opposite of what most people do, which is forward and together. Yeah, so back and wide makes, because it's a strange direction to give to this, but if one thinks about the opposite, that makes sense. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I got a sense of the 3D-ness of me, seeing from within something. Yeah.
Kitty Villa-Ponster herself was a schizophrenic, I think. She had mental illness problems, and so she didn't teach much, but she used it for herself, I think.
Yeah, really nice to rediscover that. When you find an instruction that is familiar from the past, and then you bring it back and to a new you, it's really cool.
Brilliant. That's nice. So, anyone have a request of something you'd like to explore else? That's Sheila.
So it's basically just a question. We've been working a bit with a quiet tongue and the space in the mouth, and allowing the back teeth to come away. And we're just wondering where the root of the tongue goes to, and if it's related at all to the deep front line, or does anybody know?
Oh, I think it is. I mean, I think the tongue is, I don't know exactly where it attaches to. Elka might be able to tell us that, but it certainly goes in with all the hyoid muscles, doesn't it? There's the floor of the mouth, which is a sling that way, and then all the hyoid muscles, which are a sling that way. And I presume that, does the tongue attach to the hyoid bone, Elka?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, would make
I
sense.
believe
That's
it.
a lot of it has a lot of attachment. I don't know exactly, but when I looked at it, there were many attachments, which, you know, it has so many different attachments, which I found the most interesting. You know,
Yeah.
it wasn't just place, yeah.
The
It's
whole,
a huge,
Go on.
I was just going to say, it's a huge muscle. What's
And it's actually composed of 8 different muscles, isn't it? I seem to remember.
I haven't really, I haven't
Yeah.
had any particular, you know, teaching in that.
It's
It's not something.
Yeah, I think there's intrinsic muscles and then extrinsic muscles that attach to it. I don't know, can't remember. It's a long time since I read anything on it. But yes, it is part of the deep front line. But it would be part of the front part of the deep front line. So let's draw up a picture. So I seem to remember that some of the tongue constrictors of pharynx, hyoid bone, what's that one? It's the tongue is sort of in here, I think, isn't it? It's sort of deep in here in the floor of the mouth. So perhaps on the anterior surface of all that, I don't know. I thought there was a digastric belly. Stylogloss is part of the tongue. That's right. There's part of the tongue there. The styloglossus. Yeah, attaching down onto the hyoid, but presumably there are attachments further back, and I don't know, further forward and up into the styloid process. I don't know, but it's in this area, so it's on this part of the deep front line. So here's the 3 paths of the deep front line. And so all this is the front part that starts from the front of the diaphragm, comes up the inside of the sternum with the inside of the rib cage, and then comes up through all these hyoid muscles, and with the voice box would be in there as well, and the floor of the mouth and the tongue and the jaw muscles, right through to the temporalis, are all part of this anterior part of the deep front line. And then the middle part comes from the middle of the diaphragm, where the heart really does sit on the diaphragm. There's a connection there, and the pericardium, which is around the fascial band around the heart, and then these big arteries that come up from the heart and veins, and all the fascia around that, which then actually attaches into the arms through the big muscles, arteries, and veins along that fascial line. But then this one comes up through the throat and onto, so that would be behind the tongue, and then onto the front of the occiput. And then the deepest front line is the anterior longitudinal ligament that runs all the way at the front of the spine, and that is contiguous with the psoas. Has the psoas on it at the bottom, and at the top it has these deep neck flexors, longus colli and capitis, and the little rectus capitis anterior, the flexors of the neck. And the scalenes are between these two as well. So my recent discoveries, for those who watched the previous video from last Friday, is that to free all this, we really need to activate this. So we can't, if we think direct to these, we'll probably tighten it. Whereas if you think to this, you really stabilize the neck, I think. And then all these structures in front can actually free off. Just like with the belly, you have to stabilize the psoas in order to get the erector spinae working. And I think the same is true here. that you really have to stabilize the neck, and then all sorts of things can actually change. And the rectus spinae in the neck can actually work, and then we get the forwards and up, and all the structures at the fronts can free off, and the shoulders can free off, and all sorts of wonderful things can happen. Does anyone want to ask questions of that?
I just have something I'd like to share is that there was a paper given at one of the congresses about this woman that was looking at PTSD, and she was talking about
looking at PTSD.
PT, yeah, and she there's a photograph that she has of Goya's shipwreck, and there's a woman, save our souls, sort of posture, and she reckons that's the terror response rather than the startle response, and it's sort of
Like
all
that?
this pressure,
Yeah.
like that. It's all this pressure through this area here, and because the person is sort of reliving this experience again and again and again afterwards, they're kind of just reactivating and generating the muscle memory, if you like, for that. And it then has psychological effect on people. And I just thought that was really interesting. And I can't remember which Congress it was. I think she gave it, I'm pretty sure it was Chicago, and the one before in Limerick. It's been written up.
Right. So
And I found that really interesting.
And of course, PTSD is a total shutdown response, isn't it? I mean, the system is so overactivated. It is just reliving the life threat.
Yeah.
It's
I think
not.
what she was working with unlearning that response.
Yes.
With her students. Yeah.
And I think that the minute one is in that sort of deep level of nervous system activation or shutdown, we lose the deep front line. I mean, I think.
Well, I was looking at that diagram and I was thinking, yes, what would the startle response do to that? What would the terror response do to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pullback, isn't it? It's the startle response is that one, but it's the flung open in terror, I guess. And it's but either way, when people are overactivated, I think they lose the deep front line. And certainly I think it's well established that the minute there's trauma in the system, we lose the pelvic floor, we lose the core muscles. And then I found a paper on this online some weeks ago, and I can't find it again, which is maddening. But this was a physio, and she was describing in detail what then has to happen, because the core is gone, and the back muscles then have to co-contract to hold us up. And that then doesn't work very well. So more and more actually has to come into play until the whole thing locks up. And people look to the back as the problem, whereas actually it's the core, and below that is the trauma. So I think the work we've been doing, finding the psoas, finding that pectineus, do you remember that one? That slight inrolling at the top of the thighs.
Yes.
Yeah. And the medial hamstrings. Do you guys know about the medial hamstrings work? Because it's quite a lot happened anatomically in the last few months, actually. The medial hamstrings. Do you want medial hamstrings as well? This is a huge catch-up. Because you know that the Myers says that the adductors are on the deep front line, and I started to look at the hamstrings. I'll just show you the anatomy of them first, actually, because I suddenly got intrigued by the fact that there aren't two hamstrings, there are three. Because if you look at the standard image behind, oh yeah, there's a hamstring on the outside and a hamstring on the inside, but actually there's more. Here's my hamstring picture, there it is. So the hamstrings go, as you know, between the sitting bones and the outside and inside of the knee. And on the lateral side, the outside, there's one hamstring, the biceps femoris, and it crosses across the femur. And it also has a second head, because that's why it's called the biceps, two heads, the two-headed muscle of the leg, as opposed to biceps brachii, which is the two-headed muscle of the arm. So that says to me that this muscle is simply a stabilizer and is not the most important one. And on this side, we've got two muscles. The semimembranosus is the lower, is underneath and is a sort of fatter muscle. And then the semitendinosus is on top. And in fact, if you just feel for the tendons on the inside of the knee, you can actually feel there are two tendons there. If you just lift your knee and feel under the inside of the knee, you'll find two tendons. So I found myself asking, why are the two muscles on the inside? So let's play. If you stand up and take hold of your sitting bones, and just to start with, do what we'll have done before, which is to bend forward, and you're aware of the hamstrings working eccentrically to control the tilt of the pelvis, and just see how far you can go maintaining a flat back. And just being aware that they're contracting now to pull you up again. The hamstring, if we think about it, the bone is pulling that way, but if you think about the backs and knees pulling up to the sitting bones to help pull that, so you can feel that it's shortening as you come up. So there's the lengthening, the eccentric contraction, and there's the shortening, pulling that sitting bone down to pull you back up to straight. Everyone okay so far with that? Yeah, good. So now I want you to stroke your inner hamstrings. Just see if you can find the two. Find the outer one first, actually. Find that tendon at the bottom. If you put your leg behind you and lift it up in the air, that might get the muscle to bulge a bit. And so you can feel that back hamstring muscle that crosses across onto the sitting bone. It's harder to feel the top of it, but you can often feel the lower part of it. So, and it really crosses, it really does cross across the bone. And then feel the ones on the inside. So we're not on the adductors, we are right on the back of the leg. Again, if I sort of lift it up in the air or bend forwards, again pops it out. So just stroke that inside hamstring. And you can stroke it from the front, you can stroke it from the back, it doesn't matter. Just wake it up. Come conscious of it, because like I say, most of us aren't conscious of these muscles on the inside. We've already done quite a lot of work to wake up the adductors, so now we're working to wake up the medial hamstring, and we'll do the other side as well. Let's give it a good rub. You can feel it's two tendons at the bottom. There's two muscles there. So why are there two muscles? Okay, so everybody find them all right? Yep. Now, so we're going to lean forward again. So again, hold your sitting bones, maybe with one hand and with the other hand, or just keep stroking. Because I want you to now to bend forward exactly as we've just done and keep stroking or keep your awareness on those medial hamstrings. If you're like me, you'll probably find that you're only actually aware of the outer hamstring and you're not aware of the middle one. So just see if you can keep that awareness, that focus on the middle hamstring, and see what then happens. And as you come up again, is there a different sense? Does it bring in something different? And does the amount you flex change? So just do that a few times. Stroking them, focusing them, bringing them into awareness. When I was first doing this, they were very fleeting in how much I could stay aware of them. They kept sort of flipping out of consciousness, which was interesting. It took a while to bring them properly back in. So, anyone got any awarenesses that's different of how this is? What can you tell me? Nicola, have you done this with me before? Did we do this in a session?
Yes, we
Yes.
did.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel really lively. And I think it's the first time I've consciously been able to do maybe the the back to the knees to the sitting bones, and my heels went to the floor. It lengthened the lower bit. It was really cool.
Ah, yes,
Lovely. Yeah.
that's great. Do anyone
Yeah.
else want to say what
A
happened?
little bit more widening, a little bit more internal rotation of the femur.
Yes, a bit more internal rotation of the femur. Yeah, and it's actually the internal rotator of the tibia as well. So it's actually the muscle that brings the feet around to where it's
The
supposed
whole
to.
leg, yeah, the whole leg.
Yeah, yeah. Anyone else want to comment? So a bit more stability, you said as well. Yeah, you found that, Sandra. Yeah, nice.
Just felt stronger and livelier.
Yeah.
It's a lot more power.
Yes, more power as well, isn't there? It's not just more stable, more stability, but also more power. Yeah, and livelier. Anyone notice that they actually were able to flex further? That may not come straight away, but I mean, for me, it can be, it's the difference between going to there and going really quite a lot further down.
Yeah, you mean we could go further down? I could, yeah.
You could, yeah. Yes, it seems to allow the lengthening of the leg when one focuses
Yeah,
on the hamstring. Yeah.
yeah, because I'm just always really focused on the front of the thighs there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just back there, I've had hardly any awareness at all, really.
There you have it. Absolutely. I mean, when I was first trying to come conscious of my hamstrings, they just weren't there. And I thought, well, maybe the back of the body has fewer receptors in it. Maybe we don't need as many receptors in the back. Actually, no, it's just that we're shut off to it. Yeah. Chris, how about you?
I just noticed a little bit taller and straighter and further back, I guess, when I came into the upright. I think that was the main thing I noticed.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the compartments of the leg. The compartments of the thigh, sorry. But oh, go away. That's it. So yeah, so not an echo. Yeah, this is a cross section across a thigh. And so this is all the quad area. So it's huge, they're huge, the quads. So that's the rectus femoris, the big straight up and down quad muscle. And then you've got the inner quad muscle, the vastus medialis, the outer one, vastus lateralis, the middle one, vastus intermedius, and it's over half the thigh at this point, certainly. And then here's the hamstring quadrant, and in between, there's these muscular septums. There's the fascial septum, the lateral intermuscular septum, and the medial intermuscular septum and the posterior intermuscular septum. So the thigh really is divided into compartments with the different muscles, the different muscle groups. So here's the hamstring section, and here's the semitendinosus and the semimembranosus. The biceps femoris, it must just be the angle of where it's taken, because there's very little biceps femoris on this particular segment. If one looked on another segment, higher up or further down or something, one would see more of it. But the important point is, to me, is that the semimembranosus is right abutting the big adductor muscle, the adductor magnus. And Myers says that the deep front line actually runs through this septum. And then he cites the adductors then as being on the deep front line. But to me, if that's on the deep front line, it's the septum, then the semimembranosus is too. And it's certainly, my experience is, these muscles seem to clue in like core muscles. They seem to clue in as part of this real core stability of the body. stability and power of the body that goes, after all, through to the big toe muscles. It's got the toe push, it's got the psoas. So the hamstrings are right, that this medial hamstring is right in there on the deep front line, as far as I'm concerned. What do you think?
It feels quite intuitive to me.
Mm.
You know, when I'm doing the heel lifts, which I've been focusing on because of long-term foot issues, and really looking for that front line and the adductors. I think the hamstrings, anything in the inside, immediately is coming in. It's just intuitive. It almost doesn't matter. I don't think it's that thing.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think it's also interesting to note that high up in the thigh, the adductors are the main muscle. You know, they're huge. They predominate totally.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So the hamstrings are bigger lower down and the adductors are bigger higher up. Yeah. So
And
they
the quads.
and the quads, of course. Are the quads big all the way up?
No. Because you've got one quad inserting centrally on the femur,
Yeah.
the stabilizer, and then you've got the biggest one is outside, laterally outside onto the femur.
Yeah.
And then you've got the stabilizing one, the kneecap going inside, which is the one
Yes.
physio talks about as the most important one.
The
That's-
vastus
that would-
medialis. Oh, right.
No, VMO, the inside quad, so the medial quad. It's
And
nicknamed VMO.
yeah. So that's and I haven't looked at that one. So that's another really crucial stabilizer muscle.
That's crucial, and to me, often when I'm working on, you know, there's certain key points in your body. That point is, to me, is a intuitive, natural link with the sesamoid bones. So any single leg activity.
So that's the vastus medialis.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also part of that internal. Does everyone know what we're talking about? No.
The inside quad. So I don't think my trousers go up all that way. Okay, so it's just if my kneecap's here, so it's the muscle is here.
Yeah. So and you can actually feel a bulge of it, can't you? You can.
Yes,
There's that.
it's a bulge before it then dips under the other ones, and that's it's the first muscle in any knee problem to waste away, and it causes the most common knee pain, which is kneecap pain. So
Right.
it's a really important one.
And if I'm remembering right as well, the semimembranosus, that deep back medial hamstring, also is its tendon, if I'm remembering right, wraps around with the poplitis. So that is also helping stabilize the kneecap. Is that right?
Not the knee. No, because the knee, in my understanding, from unless it's been updated, the kneecap sits inside the quadriceps tendon, and it's the so the kneecap position is determined by which quadriceps we're using most, and because most people totally, you know, the foot's turned out, that whole pattern we talk about, external rotation of the femur, foot turned out, fits into the most common knee problem, which is the kneecap being pulled too far to the outside, and it comes out of this little ridge, and then you get a bit of pain. And so the VMO is the only main force that keeps it running along in that ridge. So it's one that's focused on a lot.
Right. So again, if we just focus knees forwards and away, we're going to play right into that. And actually
Yes.
really want to be thinking about that inside line. Yeah.
The whole front line. Yeah. Feeds into.
I've got a picture somewhere of the front of the thigh. Here we go. Yeah, so here it is. Here's the there's the, as you say, the kneecap held within the quadriceps tendon.
Yeah, and there's more fascia which isn't in your picture,
Sure.
which spreads from the kneecap into all the different parts of the quad. So you've got, that's right, there's your VMO, vastus medialis. Yeah.
And that's, as you say, it goes on to the thigh. And then vastus lateralis, which is the purple one, which actually comes right round the back and makes a fascial connection with the big quad muscle, with the big glute muscle, where it comes.
Yeah,
around the
and
thigh.
that's really big, the vastus lateralis. Yeah, and
Yes. Yeah, it's a huge muscle. And then,
so the tendon, the patellar tendon is really much more fan shaped, into
into everything. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, and then here's the adductors, which, as you say, are big at the top of the thigh.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And of course, this picture doesn't show the hamstrings. Wow. Okay. Well, there's another nugget.
Another take.
Yes. And the vastus medialis, that inside quad, presumably that is also an internal rotator. Is it? Or is it just stabilized?
No, I think it's just a stabilizer for the kneecap.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's the medial hamstrings that are the internal rotators. Yeah. I mean, here we have that balance across the leg again, don't we? That one side of the inside of the muscle is an internal torque muscle and the outside muscle is an external torque muscle.
Because your hamstrings are, of course, inserting on the tibia, below the knee joint line, and the VMO is on the femur. So you can't really, it's just totally on the femur and onto the kneecap.
Yes. So it doesn't actually have the power to.
Doesn't rotate.
It doesn't rotate.
The torsion is on the kneecap, but not the femur.
So it goes between the femur and the kneecap and the inside of the thigh. So actually it's not crossing a joint at all. It's just, its role is to stabilize the kneecap then and stabilize the bend of the leg.
I hope I'm not getting myself in hot water here. But all quadriceps go into the kneecap. So that's true for all the quadriceps, and yet they are totally responsible for controlling the extension and the bend of the knee.
Yes, and of course the kneecap itself goes onto the tibia, so.
Yeah, so it is going in. So it is the medial vector of the kneecap.
Yes. So let's put it all together and come back to where Chris started with the question about coming into the new monkey. Should we do that? And so the standard way of going into monkey, of course, is knees forwards and away and bending at the hips. And so the back actually sags down a little bit and the knees have to then work too hard. And it's all very free, but it's not very stabilized. And so we are not letting the knees go forwards. We're keeping them staying backwards, and we're keeping them we're not allowing them to go forwards. One of Alexander's negative directions. So let's just find those medial hamstrings because we're wanting the thigh to lengthen. And let's find that posterior iliac spine widening. Maybe just put your hands on it for a moment and find that widening of it with the breath. And being aware that that is part of this transverse abdominis pulling around. And as it pulls around, it is widening the posterior, and as a result, it is pulling the anterior back. And if we also think about that internal rotation of the leg coming from the hamstring and also perhaps from this little pectineus muscle or the psoas, whichever it is, that's also pulling one back in there. This is pulling round, the medial hamstrings are working. And of course, we're keeping the chest up. So we're not letting anything drop. We're not letting the chest drop on the out breath, which is also then keeping the belly muscles engaged and zipping up. And all that pulls us back in space. And I don't know about you, but I can really feel that vastus medialis helping to stabilize so that the medial hamstrings are keeping that rotation of the thigh. The pectineus is keeping the rotation of the thigh. Medial hamstring is also keeping the rotation of the leg, and this is then stabilizing the inside of the knee. So the knees are going forwards. They're not going together, they're not going apart. So forget the knees forwards and away. We've just got the knees forward, except that the kneecap itself does a little external rotation. It does its own knees forwards and away, but the legs themselves are going parallel. And we get this lovely pulling back, which we can pull back as far as Jando's monkey, which is just a 17 degrees, or we can pull it back as far as Sheila's grandbaby, my grandbaby, and take it right back to the shape that we might need to do for a deadlift. Picking something up. We want to go right down there. As children do. How are we doing? Did I go through that too fast, or? That's fine. Elke, how was that for you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's. I've been working into that. That's good.
Yeah. Chris, what was that like for you now?
That was good, but I'll need to come back to it and just practice it.
Yes. Yes. Every time you get that saucepan out of the bottom cupboard. I hope you have a bottom cupboard to bend down to. Or do you have a movement that you have to do a monkey for regularly?
Well, I have a post outside where I do a deep squat onto it. So I hold it as I get right down into the deep squat.
Right.
And I can just apply some of the stuff that you've been talking about.
Yeah. I think it's, again, with the Goldie thing, you see, it's useful to have a pinpoint of it in the house. I mean, unloading the dishwasher or opening a kitchen drawer or something you lift regularly, something you're actually doing every day, where you can make a little stop moment and go, okay, let's see how I'm bending. It's really nice to have these moments in the house. Can you think of something that you might put that to, not going right into the deep bend that where you would need to hold on, but maybe something a bit smaller, even sort of opening the knife drawer?
Well, over the sink, and going down, get a saucepan out of a cupboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Cleaning teeth is another one, of course. You know, do I do this on the basin, or can I actually support the body into teeth cleaning and get enough lean over that I don't drip toothpaste on me? It's a good challenge, that one. Sandra, how was that one for you?
Yeah, good. I've been playing with the squat quite a lot. And yeah, so what I found today was, for the first time, I got the sense of, I think very early on you gave the direction of knees away from sit bones, and I could never understand that, but I got that sense of them lengthening away.
Nice.
And
Good.
just a lot more. I feel like when I come out of squats and, you know, what we were doing today, just a lot more open through the front of the hips, like that, really opening, as opposed to always sort of being a little bit.
Yes.
So much more length.
Nice. And again, the more those medial hamstrings and the hamstrings can do their bit, the more the front of the body can open, isn't it? Nice.
Yeah, so getting much more a sense of the whole working more often, and getting a better sense of, you know, the connectedness of it. I still can't quite articulate it very well, but definitely feel just much more integrated, much stronger. Yeah,
and that's lovely. And I actually picked up, there's a book somebody recommended to me, which is the first 20 minutes. It's exercising longer and smarter, but she quotes a whole lot of research saying you know, everybody used to think that strength was about one muscle, and they've realized that strength actually comes from all the muscles working together. Yay! Alexander could have told them that 100 years ago. But, you know, science is catching up with what we've known for a long time.
I had, when you showed the image of the front lines and the heart sitting on the diaphragm, just how much compromise or how much harder the heart must have to work if the rib cage is locked.
Mhm.
Because your whole body is not supporting that muscle. Again, that muscle's become isolated from the whole.
Yes.
Whereas, as opposed to it helping, you know, the diaphragm and the breathing, helping support tone and up.
Yeah, I have a pupil whose husband is quite a lot older, and he actually has, you know, he has heart failure. And she realized we were working with her about really getting the ribs moving at this point. And she realized that her husband's chest was completely rigid. And she got his, I got her gently to really push actually on his rib cage to get it working again all the way up. And it's really helped him, just because, and my understanding is that when that isn't happening, the heart actually stops being heart-shaped and goes ball-shaped. And that's where it malfunctions, because you need the heart shape in order for that the ventricle, the left ventricle, to do that big squirt to send the blood around the body. And if it's ball-shaped, it can't do that. So, I mean, there's clever people, you know, surgically changing the heart to make it back heart-shaped. But it makes more sense just to get this mechanism going that actually is squeezing the base of the heart and keeping it heart-shaped so that it actually functions right. And so, yeah, getting that rib cage working and that whole middle of the body is crucial for heart health. And I think he was a belly breather, but, you know, whether you're a belly breather or a chest breather, either way, it misses out the heart and the diaphragm. Yeah. Sheila, how was that for you?
That's very good. I remember doing these squat and not allowing the knees to go forward. And it's really difficult for me, especially going into a deeper squat, which is one of my goals, is to be able to squat like that.
Yes. And I think, I mean, there is a point, of course, where, as we saw with the grandchildren, yours and mine, where the knee has to come forwards. Everybody's seen these pictures of the grandchildren, haven't they? Doing these squats?
No,
No? Okay, let's have a quick video show. Because it's fascinating actually to watch the children doing it. And sometimes I must work out which is the best one to show. Here's your grandchild. Come back. So look at how her knees don't go forwards.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then the bum drops.
Yeah, that's right. She doesn't go fully into squat on this one, but the knees absolutely aren't moving. It's all happening, and the thighs come back. Let me find another one of her going into full squat. There we go. So knees stay still, and then at the last minute, knees go down.
Yeah.
Knees come back to the point where the thigh is vertical, and it's a horizontal rather, and then the whole thing straightens up. So it's all happening from that thoracolumbar fascia. And that's what we could still be having as adults. You know, this isn't just babies. And I think one of my, can you see that? Not
No.
yet. I can hear it because he's playing with his pianos. And, so again, there's that coming up. And I think so I've got him going down. Yeah, there's the going down. It's although he's moving his feet as he does it, so it's not so. Gosh, he's actually moving his feet as he's going into squat. That's amazing. I hadn't spotted that before. So
That's actually really useful, because I have been playing with squats a lot, and I noticed that towards the end of it, I medially rotate, collapse into the middle.
Collapse into the middle. And he doesn't, does he? The knees
No.
absolutely forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, it's so the leg. I was watching him walking yesterday and getting some videos, which I haven't got off my phone and onto the computer yet. And the other thing I was very aware as I was watching them yesterday is how much their deep neck rotators, their deep neck flexors are in operation all the time, because we've always thought of it in Alexander as the head, you know, extending forwards and up, but it's happening because these deep neck flexors are active and their psoas is active, and they just, you know, if a child wants to do something, they just flex their head a bit further forwards. There's none of this. It's always with this supported, the neck supported with the deep neck flexors. Let me just see if I can show you some images on my phone, because I took loads of pictures of this yesterday, but whether you'll see them or not. Now here's a lovely one of Ari, the baby, doing a twist as she come back. Come on. Oh, lost my three little dots. There we go. That's spotlight. So you see that she's doing a lovely squat with a twist in it, and so leaning over the toy box, and it's so supported. You know, even though she's not doing very much of a bend, she's actually got. She's so supported as she's leaning over it. Yeah, there's another one of her going into movement. She's very whole body, this one. Theo can be a bit clunky, but a little bit of a klutz, but this one's very whole body, always. Let me just come back to the beginning of that one. Where's the video of her? There, let's get the start of it. Come back to the beginning of it. Come on. Oh dear, phone, behave yourself. Blooming things. Let's see if I can. No, there's a nice bit of her squatting. Let's try again. There, that's it. Again, same thing. That the knee completely stays vertical, even when she squats. But let's see the neck ones, the ones I was getting of Theo. So there he is playing, and the back is on line with the spine, but yet this it's not a dropping forwards of the head. I think it's a very deliberate pulling forward of the head that they do. This was my sense. And if anyone wants to contradict, please do. But they don't lean forward from the upper body the way that most adults do. They don't collapse the chest. There's a length to it. I don't know whether we'll see in this. This is quite a long sequence of him playing with his trains. He sits with his feet either side like this, and then he's able to lean forward. There we go. He's just able to lean the whole torso forward from that place. And there's again that neck coming forwards and staying forwards when he leans forward. Comes back a little bit when he crawls, of course. And he's just able to flex completely down to get under the sofa, which is very nice, into this deep child's pose.
He really leads with the head as well, doesn't he, when he's turning in that?
Yes, but the legs are completely part of the movement, aren't they? There's no sense of his legs sort of being optional extras. They really are part of it's real whole body movement. And then up he just comes.
Yeah.
Just springs up. Oh, and he's going to lift something in a minute as well. And that's quite interesting. He's looking around the room. This is my studio, which is an accessory playroom. And he suddenly remembered that the juggling balls are in the drawer. Now, he doesn't stand up to get these out, so it's a rather awkward movement for once. He has to sort of strain a bit to get those out. I love that push forwards from the whole back. And then there he is, just the balls just come with him. It's quite a heavy basket, that. And it just comes up with him. So yeah. So this is, you know, I used to think that maybe small children move differently because they have different shape, but actually I don't think they do. I think we really want to be getting back to this, just whole body movement. Anyone else want to say anything? Nicola, how was the bending forward for you there?
I was a bit disconnected. It was a bit bad. It wasn't my finest work. Yeah. So I'll just keep plugging away at it, you know.
Yeah, and I took it quite fast, so maybe it was a bit fast for you. Yeah.
What really helped, I did the longitudinal ligament with you, didn't I?
Yes.
The rest of the day I found myself doing monkeys with just the bum just going back. I felt like a gorilla when I was walking down the road. It was extraordinary. So of course I tried to get it back and couldn't get it back. But yeah, that was cool. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Need to be back to first principles, trace it all through again. Yeah. And I'm finding it and losing it, finding it and losing it, because one moment one gets this really clear experience of everything linking up, and then the next minute is gone again. So, that's how it goes. So yeah. Good. Okay. Well, I'm happy to do this again in another 3 months if you would like, which would take us through to September. So should we organize a time nearer the time? Because yeah, so we'll get back in touch in September. But I hear, Elke, that you have an idea of meeting on Zoom every month, and I think that's a lovely idea.
I do. No, I just thought if we meet more often, yeah, I thought we would. Yeah. So we can share and bring something to it, and just keeps the motivation, and it's lovely to have this have 8 groups.
Good. Well, I hope that was helpful today. And yeah, it'd be lovely if you checked in with each other as I say, keep the flame burning, and hopefully that's, I mean, already I can see that's sparked things. So yeah, I hope that was helpful today. So
Yeah,
see you
thank
all in 3 months one way or another. And
Brilliant.
thank you. Elke, do you still have a moment for me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay. All the best.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank
for
you.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah, bye-bye.